Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the neighborhood meeting for 715 North San Mateo Drive. We're just going to allow just a couple more minutes for other people to come in, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right. Again, welcome everyone to the neighborhood meeting for 715 North San Mateo Drive. My name is Chris. I'll be acting as the meeting moderator for today. I'm a third party that's just going to be hosting the meeting and running all of the technical aspects of the meeting. Just a few housekeeping things to cover before we get started is that we've temporarily adjusted the meeting controls to hopefully plan for a clean meeting. So we've removed the ability to unmute yourselves for now, but we will have a Q&A section later on in the meeting. So we'll go ahead and prompt you to unmute yourselves if you have any questions that you might have. Also, for this meeting, the chat functionality has been disabled, but if you do come across something that you have a question on, I advise you just write it down so that you make sure you remember it, and then we'll go and answer those in order when it comes time for that Q&A section. Another brief reminder is that this is a public meeting, so we do ask that when you do ask questions, we ask everyone just to be courteous and polite to one another. Unfortunately, we might have to remove unruly individuals, but hopefully not for this meeting. And we're looking forward to all of the interest that is shown in this meeting by how many are here today. So thank you very much for attending, and we'll get started with our meeting. And also, one last thing is that this meeting is being recorded. So if you wish for personal reasons to not be recorded, then you could just turn off your camera or stop your video, and that'll prevent you from being recorded. So to get started, we'll hand over the presentation to Jonathan Stone.
Thanks, Chris. Much appreciated. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jonathan Stone with Prometheus Real Estate Group. It's good to be with you all tonight. I'm joined tonight by Don Peterson with Prometheus, as well as several members of the project team, including Jeff Gibson with WGA Architects, Kyle Christie with BKF Civil Engineers, and Jonathan Beaver with Knott Studio Landscape Architects. We want to spend some time tonight to discuss the project proposal located at 715 North San Mateo Drive. This site's located on North San Mateo Drive between State Street and Villa Terrace. The area is part of the residential medium 2 general plan district and located between downtown San Mateo and downtown Burlingame. We've begun working with the city on the application, ensuring the project adheres to city guidelines. Project application is in its early stages. Formal application will be submitted to the city shortly, at which point a detailed review of the project will take place. Chris, if you wouldn't mind, the next slide, please. Thank you. Regarding the agenda for the evening, tonight we'll provide an introduction to the Prometheus and project team. We'll review the project goals. We'll follow that with an overview of the project, the design, which consists of the general plan and context, the project design and architecture, the objective design standards, the pedestrian streetscape. We'll summarize the project process, and then we'll open up to questions. There's a lot to cover. We'll try to do our best to move quickly and cover these details. Next slide, please. As a brief introduction to the project team, as mentioned, Don Peterson and I are with Prometheus Real Estate Group. Prometheus is a long-term owner and operator, having built its first project in 1968, which we still own and manage. That's in Sunnyvale. Prometheus is headquartered and located in San Mateo, a local firm, not far from the project site. WGA Architects out of San Francisco is working to design the project. Knott Studios, the landscape architecture firm. And again, BKF is the civil engineer. They all bring a high level of design and technical expertise to the project. In the city of San Mateo and the planning, public works, and building departments, all of whom provide important guidance along the way. And Elaine Lang with the city's planning department is here tonight. Next slide, please, Chris. Thank you. To follow up on Prometheus and our work in San Mateo, the screen are several properties and projects we are working on currently in the city. The firm owns and manages over 13,000 apartment homes, the majority of which are in the Bay Area. Prometheus's most recently completed project in the city of San Mateo is Brickline, next to the Caltrain station downtown. Also shown here, the Metropolitan Apartments between 3rd and 4th on Fremont, the Chesapeake Point Apartments on Marina Court, the Merkel Building on B Street. This is the Art Deco building with Blue Bottle Coffee. 222 4th Ave. This is the Drager's site. This is a collaboration with Lane Partners, an approved project now in for building permit. First and B, the Donut Delight site, our partners Harvest Properties, an office and retail project. And not pictured here is Bespoke, the Talbot Site project, which is a partnership with the city of San Mateo, Harvest, Alta Housing, which includes 71 affordable units, office space, and will be the future home of self-help for the elderly. Next slide, please. When thinking about this project and the importance it has for the area, we believe it's important to communicate the goals for the project, which we will do so here tonight. We look forward to hearing your thoughts as well. Number one is providing housing to address the continued need in the city of San Mateo and the region for market rate and affordable housing. The project consists of 181 units, made up of studios, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. Included are 18 affordable units for much needed workforce housing, all at the very low level. This is in line with the requirements of the city's inclusionary ordinance and the state density bonus law. Number two is implementing the standards of the City of San Mateo General Plan 2040, which was recently adopted, and supports providing a range of housing and densities, encouraging a broad variety of housing types and sizes that fit many different needs, and including design to facilitate the pedestrian path of travel throughout the area. Number three is to provide distinguished architecture in line with the guidelines of the city's objective design standards. We will provide more detail on the objective design standards in a few minutes. And finally, supporting pedestrian bicycle connectivity throughout the city. Next slide, please. Thanks. Now we'll take a few minutes to walk through the project design. In order to do so, we feel it's best to start with the General Plan 2040. Next slide. Thank you. Regarding General Plan 2040, it is the guiding document for how the city grows. And its guidelines encourage new development to maximize density within the land use plan and efficiently use land and infrastructure resources in order to provide a range of housing types, sizes, and affordability levels in all San Mateo neighborhoods. The General Plan 2040 was approved by City Council in April 24 and further confirmed by the voters of the city via Measure T in November of 24. Next slide, please. This is an area plan for 715 North San Mateo Drive to redevelop a car sales parking lot that is no longer in use and a short-term rental duplex. Next slide, please. This is the site plan for the project, zooming in further. To orient you, north is roughly page left here. Parcel fronts North San Mateo Drive and extends from Villa Terrace on the south to State Street on the north. The primary residential entry is on North San Mateo Drive at the green arrow shown on the page. The garage entry is off Villa Terrace, shown on the right-hand side of the screen with the blue star. The interior parking is surrounded by residential units, lobby, amenity, and utility functions that will not be visible from the street. Next slide, please. Moving up the building, the second floor will host the majority of the amenity space. The upper floors of the residential units are oriented around a southwest-facing courtyard and include a pool, spa, barbecue, planting, and seating options. Next slide. Thank you. Moving further up the building, the sixth floor will also have a modest amenity lounge space and usable outdoor area on the north end and southwest corner. I'll now turn it over to Jeff Gibson with Winter Gibson Architects to further take you through the building design.
Great. Thank you so much, Jonathan. So I'm Jeff Gibson from Winter Gibson Architects. We are, you can move to the next slide, Chris. That'd be great. Thank you. We are a mid-sized firm based in San Francisco and doing work throughout the Bay Area. We have a focus on market rate and affordable housing and on multifamily as well as smaller infill, sort of multifamily and single family work. We're really excited to be working with Prometheus on this project just because they're such a great local firm with their headquarters in San Mateo. So I'm going to take some time now to explain the project design, kind of architecturally, but also in terms of massing and position on the site and those kinds of things. I want to take a minute to actually commend the San Mateo Planning Department for the excellent work that they've done recently, updating the general plan and establishing this document called the Objective Design Standards. I'm going to use the term ODS for short. So I hate acronyms in general. These meetings are always too full of acronyms. Try to just remember that one, ODS. That's the Objective Design Standards. As I outline the architecture, I'm going to refer back to those planning documents where relevant so that anyone interested can understand the rules that we are required to follow and the decisions that we're making within those rules. If you're interested in the ODS, it's easily available online. The general plan is also available online, and our planner is on this call as well, and you'll be able to reach out to her in the future if you desire. So in the general plan policy CD 7.3 seeks to encourage new multifamily developments that enhance the neighborhood's character by providing context-sensitive building and pedestrian scale elements, high-quality materials and construction, open space, resident amenities. So with this project, we are replacing a large sort of windswept parking lot, former auto sales area, former auto dealership, with a well-crafted new building, providing 181 units of new housing. So kind of in alignment with that general plan policy. I'm going to walk you around the building, starting with this rendering that you see on the screen, which is at the corner of Villa Terrace and North San Mateo. So we're looking at that corner. The main entrance and lobby are at the base of the dark gray brick volume that you see sort of over to the right side of this. So to kind of orient you again. Okay, next slide. Thank you, Chris. Great. In this view, we've sort of swung around. We're still on North San Mateo. We're looking more straight at the lobby entrance, which you can see with the sort of double wood doors there. As a brief overview of San Mateo's multifamily objective design standards, they've been adopted. I'll sort of outline the goals of the ODS to maintain and enhance San Mateo's charm through the built environment and ensure new development incorporates quality design and architectural styles that work with the city. The ODS is there to ensure that pedestrian movement and the pedestrian experience are considered foremost in the design of new developments. And they're there to require architects like my firm to pay particular attention to specific elements such as scale, materials, driveways, landscaping, and more. So they're really a good set of guidelines for us to follow to try to make sense of producing buildings at this scale in San Mateo. This project follows and implements San Mateo's multifamily objective design standards in a number of ways. Um, this carefully considered design draws upon the immediate neighborhood context and the broader regional vernacular for design cues and inspiration that honor sort of the mid-rise elements of San Mateo's ODS and some of the mid-rise or apartment sort of history in San Mateo. Some of those elements would be like the soft, creamy stucco, brick in two tones here. There's wood appearance cladding and iron work, sort of wrought iron work. And all of those connect with what we consider the Mediterranean tradition in San Mateo architecture, but also using those to sort of update to contemporary forms that work at a building at this scale. Okay, Chris, the next slide. Thank you. Great. Here we're seeing the North San Mateo facade, sort of along the full block. And a key aspect of the ODS is to create a set of tools and rules that ensure that building massing is broken up and varied, particularly along long facades. So, for example, ODS 4.1.4 says that structures 3 or more stories and 60 feet or more in length should follow the rule of thirds, in which a structure is divided into at least 3 primary masses. So we've sort of broken that up with the gray brick volume here and then further subdivided those elements with sort of reveals or insets or crenellations. So we sort of use material changes, and then facade modulation in order to accomplish that. Within the volumes, we're also sort of articulating the facades with inset balconies and windows recessed, also per ODS 4.1.2. Next slide, Chris. In this view, we've sort of zoomed down to the pedestrian scale. We're looking at the base of the building. We've been working really closely with BKF to understand the sidewalk improvements and Knott Studio to design the landscape at the base of the building. Those will evolve a little further from this rendering you're seeing here. We appreciate the way that the ODS adopts some of the best elements of traditional buildings while allowing them to be applied to contemporary or transitional sort of architecture. The ODS encourages a clear sense of base to the building, and our design presents a sort of high base with a brick-clad pilasters on the bottom level, sort of following the ODS guidelines 4.1.6. This base has deep set openings and we have ground floor units. We don't have any retail space in this project. And those ground floor units will have stoops or landscaping insets. And all of those things together sort of create active use at the streetscape, which I think is obviously a huge contrast to the nature of walking along that sidewalk as it is today, to provide an inviting pedestrian experience all along there. When completed, this block will feature street trees, bike racks, abundant planting, and a lot of visual interest. Coupled with the bike lane that's already in place and will be maintained along that block, this design prioritizes the local pedestrian and bicycle mobility, connectivity, and safety as outlined in the general plan. Okay, Chris, the next slide. Thank you. Great. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the organization of the building because that tends to be of interest to people in these meetings. We've designed this building around a linear courtyard that starts at the second floor and then extends up to the sky. It's basically built over the parking below. The parking is at the ground floor, but as Jonathan said, is wrapped with other program. And then there's also a full level of parking at one level of basement. That linear courtyard opens up to a pool area at the southwest corner, which is what we see in this left-hand view here. There is a more dense residential wing fronting North San Mateo, which is to the right of the aerial rendering, and then a thinner single-loaded wing with a lower density, lower intensity of use to the left of the courtyard, sort of at the back of the site. The linear courtyard is designed as a sort of quiet, peaceful, natural feeling place, bringing light and greenery into the units in the project. General Plan Policy CD 7.5 related to multifamily open space requires that a portion of required open space in these multifamily projects is usable for passive and active recreation so that the building, can kind of serve the people who live there and doesn't put an overdue burden on other things like parks in the city. So, it's different than having a backyard in your home, but there's a collective open space here in the form of this linear courtyard. We love this requirement and we've designed the project with a strong focus on landscape and open space. ODS 3.2.3 also controls the placement of vehicular driveways and garage doors, requiring them to be on secondary streets. I think the logic of this is to avoid congestion on the main thoroughfares and to avoid sort of dangerous conflicts at the higher speed streets like North San Mateo. So in this project, we have placed the garage entrance, which is just a single in and out entrance off of Villa Terrace. You can kind of see it pretty discreetly there just below the pool in this view, you sort of barely see the garage door. We did study sort of both streets. It's actually not really possible to put it on State Street because that's where all the main utilities of the building are going to come in, electrical service, other things. So there'd be like an inherent conflict between those uses. Okay, Chris, the next slide. Thank you. Okay, a couple more points to make, and then I'll hand it back to Jonathan. Thank you. ODS 3.2.3, again, controls the garage doors, and you can kind of see the garage door a little bit better in this view. And then the ODS also really encourages making sure that the parking is sort of not visible and it doesn't create an inactive street frontage. So again, that pedestrian experience. So here the cars just go right into that garage door and they're in this sort of wrapped interior parking. We are at this time, I think, anticipating at least a 1-to-1 parking ratio in this. So it's one spot per unit. I think that's everything that I need to say. I'm definitely available for questions. And thank you for the chance to introduce this project to you and turn it back over to Jonathan. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. Outreach for the project is ongoing. We'll open the meeting to questions shortly, but we want to make note that we're always available to discuss any questions you might have. Chris, if you could forward the slide deck one page. You can reach me and Elaine with the city. The information on the screen and in the handout you received in the mail. So following tonight's meeting, as a bit of a detail on the next steps ahead for the application. The application process will continue in the formal app process, which will include detailed review by the city. So those are the next steps coming. And with that, we want to open it up to any questions you might have. Thank you all again for your time this evening. We greatly appreciate it and look forward to your questions and comments. And so, Chris, we'll hand it back to you.
All right, thank you. So now we're going to open it up for Q&A. So if you have any questions, if you're on camera, you can just raise your hand. We'll see you. But if you have the raise hand functionality, you can find that under React or Reactions button. Then you can raise your hand virtually that way, and we'll get to your questions that way. If you are dialing in by phone, then to raise your hand, you'll have to hit *9 on your dial pad, and that will raise your hand if you're calling in by phone. All right, so let's go ahead and start. We have a question by Ankit, I hope I'm saying that right. If you can unmute yourself.
This is a question to, I think, based on the plans that were sent to us via mail. Can you talk a little bit about the address of parcel B in the plan? Uh, it is being marked as an unoccupied single-family residential building.
Yeah, sorry, is that, just to confirm, is that the parcel that's on Villa Terrace?
Sorry,
Make sure.
can you unmute yourself again? Sorry for that.
Yes, that is correct. That's parcel B, marked as single residential on Villa Terrace.
Correct, that is part of the project.
I believe I I don't think it's accurately represented here. I see the house right in front of us. It's not a vacant, unoccupied building, and it's not a single family home.
That's correct. It's a duplex that's currently being rented out by the ownership of the building on a short-term rental basis. It is part of the application.
Isn't that misrepresentation saying it's unoccupied?
No, I believe we represented the parking lot and the two buildings there as vacant and occupied. So sorry if there's any confusion there.
Will there be a clarification, because the document that was received clearly states it's an unoccupied building to be removed. It is not an unoccupied building, and it's not a single family home.
Certainly that will be clarified in paperwork, because there are other documents that do clarify that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and move on to Denise, if you can unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm Connie Dillard. I'm here with Denise Pearsall. We're two neighbors right along. We're on the State Street side of the property. We live over on State Street, so we're in the condominium units right bordering this property. And we have 15 families here that are very, very anxious about having a 71-foot building blocking all of our sun. We right now you're showing as being 3 feet off of the property line, 71 feet. I can tell you my backyard is going to be completely dark until afternoon with 71-foot building. And I just don't know that I can handle having people being 3 feet from my bedroom window, because we're only 5 feet off of the we have a 5-foot setback on our side. We have a fire lane. Are you guys gonna have a fire lane or a fire setback on that side of the property? Because we had to have a 5-foot setback for fire access. And if you are 3 feet off of our property line, that only has 8. That means only 8 feet between our buildings, basically, and the terrace next door. That's pretty dang close. So we're hoping that you're going to do some type of on that area where it says the terrace overhead and it's 71 feet there, that you could probably push that back away from our building. Because if you don't, we're going to lose all of our sunshine for our backyards for half the day, for at least half the day. And we're going to have people literally in our bedrooms. Those are bedrooms right along that wall. So we're going to have people in our bedrooms walking around on a terrace looking into our bedrooms. So also the second thing I had, okay, go ahead, Denise.
Do you guys have any comments on that?
Yeah, sure. Why don't you complete your commentary, and then we'll be happy.
Well, we have a couple of other questions, so we were hoping that you can answer this one now. Talk to us about the plans there, and then we can ask a few more.
Yeah, one. If you could just complete your comments, we'll certainly do our best to address them. That'd be great.
Okay. Also, the parking amount. We are in a area where we have permitted parking because the parking impact here is so bad already from the big units that you put across the street on San Mateo Drive along the train tracks, which there is not enough parking on the street in the area that you guys have, and you have not a 1-to-1. There's not even a 1-to-1. Is there parking amount? This neighborhood is severely parking impacted. So unless you can regulate the number of cars that each unit is allowed to have, and I know there's no way you can do that, but this is going to be a parking crazy. That it's going to be parking crazy.
And there is another building going up
right on the other side of us. This that's another two-story. It's a two-story building. I'm wondering why we have to have a 6-story building. We are a 2-story building, and you're going to put a 6-story building all the way along us. It needs to either be cut back to 4 stories, 3 stories. That's the highest I've seen on San Mateo Drive down towards El Camino. I mean, not down towards San Mateo downtown. We are not on the train track corridor. You guys are trying to build the same exact units here, plopping it over here on this side of this into our neighborhood. And that's not, our neighborhood is not a 7-story neighborhood. It is a 2-story neighborhood.
Yeah. What else you got?
I had some other things, but do you have some other things?
No, go.
Can I come back later and give you some other comments?
Yeah, Denise, absolutely. We'll go ahead and just so that we can get to other people,
Go ahead.
allow the presenters to respond, and then you can always raise your hand again.
Sure, thank you. And quickly to address the 2 comments. So on the setback, we are certainly further back from the dimensions that you mentioned. We'd be happy to meet with you in a follow-up call or meeting to walk you through that. But the plans do suggest greater distances that are in line with various city codes and/or exceeding those. But we'd certainly be happy to walk you through those and some of the plans that articulate that in greater detail. With regards to the parking, the plans do propose a 1-to-1 ratio, and that has been heavily studied on our end. And just to provide some context, throughout our portfolio, we study this with great detail to make sure that we're not over parking or under parking based on the types of projects that we design and their locations. As a bit of context, the Brickline project that we've recently completed downtown has a 1-to-1 parking ratio for the residential users, and it only has a 50% use rate currently. And also the metropolitan apartments that have a greater ratio, a 2-to-1 ratio, that are on the east side of downtown. There's roughly 120 or more spaces that are available there. So there's anyway, those are data points that we use to find the appropriate amount of parking. Study that at length, because we certainly don't want the project to be unsuccessful. Another item I might add is that there are, in all of our projects, staff members that live on site and that are available at all times. So any concerns that do come up, we have people, myself included, our, again, headquarters are down the street from the project, and we very much want to be a part of solving any and all concerns that do come up. This one, though, that is mentioned in the parking, we believe we are designing it to a ratio that will work. We simply understand parking concerns that may pre-exist in a certain area, and are always wanting to be part of helping to solve any sort of concern along those lines. So anyway, with that, I'll stop there. We can go on to another question if there are any.
Thank you. Can we have Sharon, if you'd like to unmute yourself?
My name is Sharon Savatsky. I live next door to Connie, the woman that was just speaking. And I have many of the same concerns. I've lived here for 17 years. I know the area very well. I know I drive on San Mateo Drive, obviously. I walk the area. And I think this project, while the design is very attractive, it's too big for the area that it's being squeezed into. And it's way too high. I agree with Connie that it should be limited to 2 or 3 stories at most. In addition to the fact that we'll lose all our privacy. We'll be looking into other people's units and them into ours. You've got the airflow. In the summers are getting hotter here as it is. There's you're going to get no breeze with a monolith like this next to us. So it's going to be it's certainly not going to enhance the area. I think it doesn't meet the city's objective of enhancing the area. And we're going to have several hundred more people living in a space that is now uninhabited. That dumps. You can talk about all the data points you want, but the truth is parking is already an issue here. Traffic has gotten heavier on San Mateo Drive, and this will only make it worse. I think I'm disappointed that the city has even allowed this size of a project to be considered for this area. This height might go this would fit into the Drager's plot or down near maybe the train station where it's not surrounded by residential housing. But I have the same concerns as Connie mentioned with the distance between us and the buildings. But the height, the density, those are, I think it will really change the character of the area. And certainly, I don't think I'll see the eastern sky again if this thing is allowed to go up at to 6 stories or 7 stories, whatever it is that you have. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Can we get Carol and Martin Gilman unmuted, please?
Hi, we're down the street at 232 Villa Terrace, and it's just a small 1912 Victorian duplex. And our daughter, who is a teacher, actually lives there and rents out the top so that she can afford to stay in the area on a teacher's salary with our help. So anyway, we already have trouble parking on the street. Our property has some parking in the back for the 2 people who live downstairs there, my daughter and her fiance, and we have 2 people who live upstairs. So they're one of them is parking on the street and the other takes the train. But I don't think a 1-to-1 ratio for a building of that size, number one, is sufficient. And why would you do a 2-to-1 ratio in a different area and only 1-to-1 there for such a huge building? And I'm very concerned about the entrance, the garage entrance on Villa Terrace, which means that anyone going to that building is going to have to turn on to Villa Terrace, which is only 1 block long. That's a 1 block long residential street for the most part. And there is only just 2-story, homes or duplexes there, and a few apartment buildings that are smaller, much, much smaller. And just because this sits on San Mateo Drive, I don't think it's appropriate that it be built like a commercial building across the street, where they built the big apartments next to the tracks. I agree, it's just way too tall for that little neighborhood, and turning all that traffic to enter a garage on a street that is only a block long, that already has tough parking. I think it's way too big, and I'm not sure what our course of action as residents could be to make that known to the city, that that is really an overbuilt, I think, building. And, I don't even know how many guest parking spaces there are. So, very concerned about parking, traffic, the size of what's going in there. It's too big.
The amount of parking spots that you are anticipating would add theoretically an in and an out to the garage each day. That's 360 cars more than are going in and out of that street every day. And it's just too much for that residential area, for that 1 block.
So that's our commentary.
Well, thank you both for your comments. As part of the studies that will take place on the project, a traffic study will be done and will address many of the comments that you just brought up. Be able to further analyze that and discuss that. Thank you.
Thank you. If we could have Helen B., would you like to mute yourself?
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to talk about this project. I am a Peninsula native and I have lived on Villa Terrace for 20 years. I'm in a 10-unit townhouse. All 10 residents have a 2-space garage and both spaces are used for everyone. Currently, when I have people over for dinner, there is absolutely no parking on Villa Terrace for 3 blocks from my property on up through the street that you're talking about. There's no parking on State Street and absolutely no parking on San Mateo Drive. So that's my first concern. My second concern, I walk my dog several times a day, and the current traffic on San Mateo Drive does not stop for pedestrians. There are high schoolers and lots of dog walkers in the area. So adding 300 and something cars to this traffic corner is going to be horrendous. I'm also a bike rider, and I'm very concerned about the bike lanes. I know that you mentioned that they will be maintained, but knowing the construction traffic that'll be needed to build a 6 or 7-story building would be horrendous. And as others have said, the charm of San Mateo from this corner all the way down to San Mateo downtown is all 2-story or 1-story charming residential properties. And this just really looks like an enormous eyesore that'll take away our sun and impact our traffic greatly. So I just want to make sure that Elaine and anyone else from San Mateo is able to hear these concerns, because it's not some high-rise cement city. It's more of a charming area. And I'd like that part to be considered. Oh, one last thing. The freeway traffic for your 181 units, they will have two cars and they either need to go to Peninsula or Poplar, depending on which direction they're commuting. So they will be turning left from San Mateo Drive onto Villa Terrace, which is already almost impossible to do. So that's really gonna impact this area. I didn't hear anything about traffic lights, which, will also be horrendous, but maybe it'll be a little bit of a control. So at least people who are crossing the street can get through. That's all.
Thank you for your comments and for your comment with regards to pedestrian safety and the like. That is a significant part of the analysis that will take place with Public Works and planning. The traffic analysis will confirm much of the usage current and in the future, and analyzing pedestrian realm and roadway realm improvements to take place to create a safe and pedestrian friendly environment is certainly part of the process with the city. So we will be working diligently with them on that. So thank you again.
Thank you. If we can get Gianna Cavalieri, would you like to unmute yourself?
Hey, okay, I live next to Connie and Denise and Sharon, who chimed in earlier. I am also on that property line. My fence backs up to where you guys are going to be building. We have two babies, 1 and 2 years old, who only have their tiny backyard, which is exactly where that apartment building is going to butt up to. That's like their only outside play area, and they're going to have zero sunlight. So I just think the height of the buildings nuts. Um I'm all for building something because the lot is an eyesore and the plants that you guys provided are beautiful, but I think the height is crazy. My other concern, which you said you guys were going to conduct like a research on parking and traffic and all that, is I'd like you to consider that there's a lot of auto body shops around here too who also use our street parking. So that causes a ton of congestion as well. Now they can only stay there for 2 hours because the State Street side is monitored, but they do overstay their welcome often. Um, so just to keep that in mind. And then the other question that I had was that you had mentioned that the utilities for the entire building are going to be on the State Street side against our property line. Is there going to be like a sound issue happening there, or just I just don't know what that looks like at all, so I'm just curious.
Thank you for the comment. Yeah, with regards to utility connection, the majority of the utilities in the area run on State Street and San Mateo Drive. So that's where the connection points. It wouldn't be at the property line, but it would be into the street, if that helps. The worst, something still to be studied further, but that's generally where things stand currently. But thank you for your comments. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. If we can go back to Denise, if you can unmute yourself.
Hello. So this is Denise. Connie was talking earlier, and I'm neighbors with Gianna and Sharon and everyone. And I want to talk about a little bit like the parking. I completely agree is going to be an issue, especially on State Street, like 2 houses down from where we are. They're building another new complex. Yeah, that's going to have build 2 houses. Yeah, taking out 2 houses and building a new complex that's going to be 3 stories, and that's again going to need a lot of parking, and that could easily impact what's already a problem on State Street, and then would be exacerbated by this really giant building. Um, I'm on the other side of the complex, so I won't be as much impacted by the height of the building, but I think it's going to have a really big impact on all my neighbors. Um, and we want to have, a little more sunlight, a little more space, a little more airflow, all the things that everybody's been talking about. I completely agree with, and
It doesn't fit the neighborhood.
and I haven't, hearing the people from Villa Terrace having the exact same concerns now, and they're in a dead end street, so that the parking issues and the just having so many cars there, I think would be even more impactful. Um, and it would be nice to have the whole building just be smaller, so there is that extra space and airflow and sunlight and all that kind of stuff. It seems to be a bit more than what we need, and there's nothing like that. I mean, anywhere in the neighborhood from you know along State Street on our side of San Mateo Avenue, it's just
There's nothing like
it's just huge. So I have concerns on that impact. So that's
Thank
it.
you. Appreciate the comments.
Actually, I wanted to know, can we get like the slide deck? Will you be able to share that with us so we can get some more information? And when you do all these studies, will you be providing that information to us?
Yeah, so without a doubt. So the plan set for the project is on the city's website. You can view all of it currently. And again, an updated version of that or a more further refined one that meets the standards of the formal application will be going into the city as our next step. And all of the technical reviews on the project, like parking and others that have been mentioned here so far, will very much be part of the public process. And Elaine is here and can speak to that, but we can also communicate directly with her after this meeting as well. But we'll be working with her and the city team with regards to all of those efforts.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to, I hope I'm saying this right, Zemina Puente Arneo. If you can unmute yourself.
Mute. How do I put my? Hi there. Thank you. Yes, you did say my name right. Hi everyone. My name is Ximena Puente now, and I live on State Street, right between University and North Claremont. And I've been a resident since 2021. We have 2 kids, a third on the way, and 2 dogs. And I just wanted to put a few thoughts out there, just repeating some of the things that other residents have already touched on, mainly parking. It's a huge issue for us. We have cameras that, just show people leaving their cars parked there for the weekends, particularly, but also just cars consistently parking into our driveway. Obviously, with so many units, that's going to be even further impacting our ability to just park on our street. Sometimes I'll come home and it's I have to park 2 blocks away from our own home. So that's definitely a concern that we have. Another one is the traffic. A lot of cars already cut through State Street to avoid Peninsula. And we're right by the high school. That's a lot of kids are walking, residents are walking their dogs. Our block alone has a lot of young kids. It's frightening how fast cars go down State Street. And it's a little street. Those are mainly the 2, let's see. Yep, those are mainly the 2 points that I wanted to make as a resident. I just see that it's already a huge issue that has not been addressed. It's really not there was some discussion, I believe it was last year, to close down parts of State Street to avoid a lot of that traffic flow. But that never came to fruition. So those are my main concerns. And it's definitely something that I've spoken with many of the neighbors about. And we are all concerned about that. A lot of us have young families. And it's, I don't trust leaving the kids to walk around the neighborhood because of the traffic and the speeding. So that was all. That's all. I just wanted to share those few thoughts. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. And those comments you mentioned, parking and driving, again, that will be part of much of the traffic analysis that I think. Thank you again for the comments.
Yes, thank you. All right, let's go to Tony. Tony, would you unmute yourself, please?
Hi, everybody. So I actually just was only just able to get on, so hopefully none of this is too repetitive, but I am a resident on the 400 block of State Street. I know Ximena, and so that block is between Woodside Way and Delaware, or Claremont to be more specific. It's a short 2-block section of State Street on the east side of California, kind of behind Ducky's. And just to kind of reiterate what Ximena just said, our street is used very often as a cut through for people trying to avoid the traffic lights on Peninsula. So people going from California Drive to get onto the freeway at Peninsula, or the opposite way, they cut over through Via Terrace on State Street to get over the tracks without hitting any lights. Students are driving, they're driving like maniacs. Yeah, it's been a huge problem for us. We've had, in the last year, we've had multiple cars hitting parked cars on our street just because people rip down our street, just trying to get places quickly. And it's a nice wide street, even though it's just a residential single family zone. The one thing I did want to bring up specifically in this meeting is there's been a lot of discussion that was, I'm not sure why, put on hold for closing down the train track crossing at Via Terrace, which we were fully in support of. It seemed like there was a lot of support in the last city council meeting for that, but everybody got caught up on whatever the action was going to be on Bellevue. And even though all the support was to close down Via Terrace with no dissent, nothing came of that. And so I'd like to see that revisited and maybe expedited, even if the Bellevue remains a question, the Bellevue crossing, and that would alleviate probably all the issues that would arise from this new development. And so that would be my main point that I'd like to have considered, is the closing of the Villa Terrace railroad crossing.
Thank you for your comments. We'll certainly, it's part of the record here, and we will, as best we can in our end, follow up with the city when those analysis begin. So appreciate the comment.
Thank you. All right, let's go to Manon, if you can unmute yourself.
Hi, thanks. I'm also neighbor of Connie and Denise and Sharon. I guess they covered a lot of questions which I had. I just want to understand what are going to be the next steps. What are the timelines looking like? And just maybe a dig deeper into, like, when you say we are going to consider this, we're going to do more analysis, like what does that mean exactly? Thanks.
Sure. Thank you for your comments. So the next steps of the application are to the application that I referenced that's currently on the city's website is what's considered an initial application. The formal application process is that plus just more details that are in line with the various city codes. Upon submitting that, the city then takes various levels of analysis on it for code compliance, traffic reports, and the like. So those will begin. Comments will be made, and we will respond accordingly. Questions and comments referenced in tonight's meeting will also become part of that process. And so the back and forth with the city process is in front of us and will continue.
Thank you. Let's go to Carl. Carl, if you can mute yourself.
Yes, evening. I'm also a neighbor of Manon, Denise, Sharon. One of my concerns is, have you submitted, according to the Building and Planning Code of San Mateo concerning casting shadow studies prior to your design to the city yet? As well as a traffic study? Has that all been submitted to the city as pertaining to the codes of the planning department?
Well, thanks for your comment. Yeah, all of that analysis is to be done in the future. We have some initial versions of some of those, but the traffic study in earnest is still to be done. So that has not been completed in its entirety at this point.
Thank you. Let's go back to Carolyn Martin Gilman. And just a reminder for those who are calling in on the phone, if you'd like to raise your virtual hand, it's *9 to do that. So going Carolyn Martin, if you can unmute yourselves.
Hi, sorry, one follow-up. I'd asked a question, how many guest spaces are currently in the plan? And I don't think I heard an answer to that. And how do you determine what ratio is utilized? Is there a formula that you guys use where you determine this building only needs a 1-to-1 versus another building needs a 2-to-1? Is it proximity to a train station? What are the parameters that make you determine that this 1-to-1 would suffice for this, and how many guest spaces are allotted for visitors to the 181 residents that are in the building? And that's all I've got.
Great, thank you, Carol. Appreciate it. The guest parking space final number is still under review and being designed as the project itself is continuing to be designed. There are a lot of technical related items internal to the garage and foundation structure, but we will provide what we believe to be adequate guest parking, and we haven't confirmed that number yet, but it'll be in line with what we see at other similar projects, which then gets to your other question on parking ratio. There are city and state regulations which have far lesser requirements than the 1-to-1 that we're proposing. So we are providing in many instances more parking than is required. And again, we never try to underpark a project because that negatively impacts the success of the project along with the environment in which it's built, which we're hearing about tonight, obviously. So we want to make sure that we're meeting demands, and that analysis is done again by the 13,000 units that we own and manage. So we study this at great length, and we will continue to do so. But the two buildings in close proximity in San Mateo that I referenced are great measurements that we base this on. So that's where we currently stand on this, and it's we will continue to review it further. So we appreciate the comment again. Thank you.
Thank you. And if we can get Denise to unmute yourself, please.
Hi, this is Connie Dillard again. I'm speaking on behalf of Egala and Jaime Mendoza, who are also in our complex. They had a question about fire safety and fire hazards. They want to make sure that we have access for the fire department to come through, and having to do with the LA fires. We're everybody's still very upset about urban fires. So we're I'm passing that message on. What was it exactly? Fire, updating lighting, fire hazards. That's what she wanted. Jaime and Egla wanted to know about. So I wanted to pass on their comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Obviously, very important comment and topic, and that is an item that has both city and state review and regulations by numerous bodies. There's state building code, fire code, city building code and fire code, and interpretation by the fire marshal and fire agency that's countywide. So there's significant scrutiny built into the design, the layout of the building, so that it is safe for users and obviously for first responders. So there's a significant amount of analysis that goes into that. We'd be happy to dive into the nuances of that in a more detailed meeting if you are interested. But there's a lot of code-specific information. The building department becomes the liaison on that front. But yes, it's a very important topic. So we appreciate you bringing that up today.
Thank you. And we have a raised hand from a call-in user. If you could unmute yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Steve Carlson, and I live on Highland Avenue, and I've lived in the neighborhood for over, 38, almost 40 years now, so I know the neighborhood just as well as all of your other call-in. This is a massive building. I look at it as sort of a horizontal high-rise, and it's a platform building, and it really belongs downtown. It's just the wrong site. I think that 888 North San Mateo Drive did a much better job of trying to relate. They came in with a much larger project as well, and they had a linear building that ran the entire length until the Planning Commission really pushed them to open up between the two buildings. And I don't think your design really gets at that, yes, and I've acknowledged what the architect has said, but you really need to break up that linear mass in a much better way. That might mean pushing your garage completely underground, as expensive as that is. I also don't think that the building, unfortunately, the way you've laid it out, is really trying to incorporate the neighborhood residential design features. As other people have mentioned, it's smaller height, scale, and proportion of building materials, things like that. But also in terms of your activity areas, they're all adjacent to users facing sort of the western facade. And I'm really concerned about the operational characteristics, ultimately, of whatever development gets there, is that the things like the sky decks and the more open activity areas are, for the target audience, I think you guys are aiming for sort of the tech guys and women, but they tend to live a little bit different lifestyle. We certainly have a number of those around the neighborhood, and I've certainly seen the neighborhood change, but they tend to care less about neighborliness, and they tend to be a little bit louder, and I'm really concerned about those kind of noise or sort of acoustic impacts, and it's almost as if the entire outside area needs to be flipped to face towards San Mateo Drive. I also agree with the other speakers that the vehicle entrance needs to be on North San Mateo Drive, and that's similar to what North San Mateo apartment complex down the road. Of course, they really couldn't get on Peninsula, but I think it's a much better solution. I think there's a way to provide a left turn pocket, and it does introduce some traffic conflicts, but I think from what everybody else has said, Villa Terrace, if you use that as an entry, you're going to have a significant amount of traffic funneling through the neighborhood rather than down San Mateo and the peninsula if they need to get on the El Camino Real or they need to get to the freeway. And ultimately on the city plans, Highland Avenue, which they'd have to travel on, is slated to become a bicycle boulevard, and that really wouldn't square up with that concept. And while I appreciate that the designer has sort of said we've sort of taken a look at the neighborhood, when I look at this as a building, I just really see that it hasn't at all. And I agree with what other people are saying. It's just massive. And I fully support the inclusion of the below market rate units. I don't have any issue with that whatsoever. I've long been a supporter for construction of affordable housing. That's not the issue. I just think what other people have said is you don't see a building like this in terms of the scale and proportion, the number of units, until you get to some place like downtown where you see the first building, what is it, on Tilton, Peninsula Regency, and then the apartment hotel across the street. But you don't see anything of that magnitude. And I just really think it's in the wrong place. As much as the city needs housing, there's no question about that. And as all cities in California need housing and across the U.S., but that's not the issue. I think the quality of the fit with this building in the neighborhood just leaves a tremendous amount to be desired. And I really take some issue with when I think the project representative indicated that the project complies with standards. I went and reviewed all the standards, and I don't really see how this project meets half of them. Clearly in the yards, I know you're asking for exceptions, but you're basically asking for exceptions from all zoning development standards. So I'm really kind of concerned about that approach where you've designed the building based on the lot area and try to have a neighborhood meeting to see how we react to it. But I think you've heard from everybody. It's just fairly massive. It doesn't step the building back. I don't think the platform concept really is appropriate in this location. I think downtown it would be, but I don't think it's really appropriate in this location. And the lack of wall detail that the folks that live in the condos on State, you guys are proposing a 17-foot wall with a screen on top of that for some of the terraces. You're looking at 24 feet. That matches the height, if not exceeds the height of their own units. So I am concerned about all those design issues. And lastly, parking is a premium in our neighborhood, and people from our neighborhood have approached the city council in the past saying we really need a parking program of some sort because there just isn't the kind of on-street spaces. Many of the buildings, the multifamilies you see in the neighborhood, those were developed in the 1960s, and they only provided one space per unit. And as other people have sort of mentioned to you, each one of those units has occupants, and there's a lot of overcrowding. We are in a community development block grant plan area, and there's overcrowding. There's a lot of on-street parking issues and building maintenance, all those kinds of things that are characteristic of CDBG areas. I just think this is putting a luxury building of this magnitude in this area. It just doesn't address all those issues, and it's really going to exacerbate the on-street parking. And I'm glad that the people from Villa Terrace said what they said, because I drive back past that area on Saturday night. There's like maybe one or two spaces available, maybe, and it's parking's at a premium. and I'll leave it at that because I know other people want to speak.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you very much. If we can get Carl, if you can unmute yourself, please.
Okay. Getting back to my question about the studies as per the building and planning code, you haven't submitted anything. Am I correct on that? For the shadow study, for the traffic study, you haven't submitted anything.
Correct. Yeah, as I mentioned, those are the next phases of the.
So this is all a preliminary. In other words, you haven't got, you're getting the feedback now to figure out how you're going to submit as per planning code, building code to the planning department. So hopefully all our comments will get to the planning commission before the commission, but to those people that are doing the plan check, the pre-plan check, and you are going to submit all our questions and concerns to the planning department? And we get confirmation on that?
Correct. And Elaine of the city is, I believe, still here. She can confirm that. But yes, this is a recorded meeting. It becomes part of the public record. Comments are noted. And to your earlier point, the technical studies of the project will begin upon the submittal of the formal application to the city, which is the next step in the process.
And will there be, let's hypothetically say that you pass this, can we get assurances from your project that there won't be any subsidence to our complex due to your excavation work prior to the start of foundation? Are you going to be putting point markers around the neighborhood as well as sound and any OSHA requirements concerning your activity of construction impact? Are you going to provide a construction impact study to the planning department if your project should get approved?
Sure, that's a great question. So, our most recent project, just as an example, well, let me back up. Every project is required to have what's called a construction management plan. It has subsections within it that address all of the items that you just mentioned in great detail that speak to city and state codes. And so an applicant to project at that phase must adhere to those. And to give you a bit of context, our most recent project in the city of San Mateo, our construction management plan was, I believe, 217 pages long. So extremely detailed. All of that is publicly accessible information, and engineer involvement and oversight and issuance of all the sub reports that go into the construction management plan address the items that you just mentioned. So yes, that will very much be addressed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tony, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a couple of kind of quick comments and questions that came to mind. In the past, I had a home closer to downtown on Fifth Avenue, and at the time, there were a lot of developments under review and getting ready to be constructed. And over the course of the planning application and submittal process, a lot of the projects would start out with a certain number of parking stalls, and the initial application would come in and meet all the requirements with flying colors. And then by the time the actual buildings started getting built, a bunch of variances would come into play where they would buy out parking spots for, at the time it was like $18,000. They could get rid of a certain number of parking spots by just paying the city for those spots that they're no longer building, which actually at the time was less expensive than actually building those spots due to the excavation concrete, shoring, all that stuff. The first question is, how do we get assurance that that's not going to happen here? Where right now I see on the plans it calls for 208 spots, which seems like a good number of spots for 181 units. But by the time this thing starts getting built, how do we know that that's not just going to get reduced down to, I don't know, 100 spots due to proximity to transit and all these little variances that developers understandably would use to reduce those costs, as well as not have to build as much parking. So that's the first question. And the second is, are these units going to be for sale, or are these going to be rented units? And that's it.
Thanks. Yeah, great questions. On the parking, again, our intent is to targeting a 1-to-1 ratio. And so we will continue to proceed towards that. That's our targeted goal. And the project, like all of the properties that we own, are rental properties. And per what I mentioned previously, just to give you some context, we own and manage over 13,000 units. We're not a merchant builder. We don't flip our properties that we ground up development in any way. We have people living there at all hours. Our headquarters are down the street. So we're here and part of the community, and we have been. Many of us live locally, and so we view ourselves as being very much part of the process and part of these projects. So we very much value your input here. So thank you.
Thank you. If we can move on to someone we haven't heard from yet, Catherine Wengand, if you can unmute yourself.
First, I want to say thank you to all the residents tonight who showed up and voiced their opinions, how important that is and how much we appreciate it. But I just want to reiterate, I own the house at 244 Villa Terrace, directly across from the proposed driveway and swimming pool. Will be greatly impacted. My property value, my standard of living there, my quality of living of that single family residence. I just want to say that I agree with my fellow residents. It's extremely too high. It's too close to the street. It should match the setback of the front yards on that street, Villa Terrace. So then any building should be set back the same distance as a front yard. And also, I might be the only one that thinks this way, but that architecture is this ultra modern contemporary does not match our neighborhood. Our neighborhood is filled with bungalows and charming vintage residences built in the 20s, 30s, maybe even in the 10s of the last century. And so it really should have a look of arts and crafts or Spanish style or something that's more of a vintage look rather than this ultra contemporary brutalist look, in my opinion. Is not appealing, it's not charming, doesn't add any aesthetic beauty to the neighborhood. In addition to that, I had a difference of opinion of one of the other residents, Tony. The Villa Terrace is slated to be closed. East Bellevue is slated to be closed. This is going to create a bottleneck of traffic on Peninsula, San Mateo Drive, and Poplar. And if you have 360 cars coming and going every day, they're probably going to put a stoplight at the corner of Villa and North San Mateo Drive. There'll be a stoplight there. They've added one already on Bellevue at North San Mateo Drive. Then you're going to have a stoplight at Poplar. Then you've got all the school traffic and everything else to get onto Poplar. You already can't leave. I mean, going west on Peninsula has also become a nightmare because of all the Facebook buildings and everything else. So traffic flow is going to be greatly impacted when they close those streets, and adding all 360 cars to the mix is going to be an even bigger problem. So I agree with my neighbors when you say that it's in the wrong place. It's something that belongs in a different neighborhood. And I know that my neighbors on both sides in their single family homes agree with me. And so thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. If we can get a comment from Mark Burry, if you can unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you. My name is Mark Burry. I'm a proud member of the local plumbers union, as well as a lifelong resident of this community where I'm raising my family. On behalf of the thousands of union construction workers here in San Mateo County, I respectfully ask that you hire local union contractors who employ local skilled and trained union construction workers. We've built our careers through local construction apprenticeship programs that have been training workers here in the Bay Area since the early 1900s. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Appreciate the comment. We're very early in the process right now, so still analyzing all aspects of the project. Thanks.
Thank you. And if we can get Manan, your comment, please.
Hi, thanks. Just following up on my previous question, I may have missed it, but I did not hear anything on the timelines. Could you be more specific on like when do you plan to finish all the analysis work? When do you plan to submit it? And when we can hear back regarding our questions and concerns? If you could be more specific, that would be great. Thanks.
Sure, thanks. Our intent is to submit the formal application in the not too distant future. At that point, the technical studies will begin, and those will coincide with engagement with the city and city staff. They're going to determine the level of review that's necessary in each of these. So we can't speak to the exact time frame of those, but keeping in contact with myself and Elaine, we'd be happy to bring you up to speed on that process and how that review unfolds. And of course, all those reports are part of the public process. So thank you for your comment.
Thank you. And we have another call-in user, if you can unmute.
Hi, this is Steve Carlson again. I just wanted to let Catherine know that my house is the first in the subdivision. It's 1902. So there are homes that go even further back than just 1910s. Additionally, a question that I had for the developer, and I do have a couple other comments on the project, but what entitlements are you seeking?
We're in the process with the city confirming the approvals. So that'll be confirmed throughout the formal application process, but it's in line with the adopted general plan 2040 and the underlying land use designation. So appreciate the call.
Thank you. And we have another hand from Gianna Cavalieri.
Hey, just back to Manon's point, is there a ballpark on when the analysis is going to be submitted? I know you said it would be in the near future, but like months or weeks?
But yeah, sorry. So the application will go back in let's call it within a month. And then after review, the parameters of the technical studies will be confirmed by the city within, just for the conversation here, shortly thereafter, let's call it within another month, they'll kick off and begin. And then from that point, we would have to confirm specifically with the city, as many of those studies are run by the city themselves, to confirm the timelines. Again, you've got on the screen here Elaine's phone number and email, so she can help confirm that level of technical detail and timeline. We'd be happy to help communicate on that front.
Thank you. It looks like our call-in user has one more question.
Thanks for answering my question on the entitlements. But I'm guessing you need at least a site plan architecture review, a site development permit, and at least a reclassification, since that you have split zoning on that lot from looking at the city zoning map. So presumably you'll be at least needing those entitlements and then whatever environmental review. Having said that, I think one of the things that the condo owners may be interested in knowing about in what technical studies you end up undertaking is the energy impact to their condominiums. Because I think you'll probably, from a shading study, be able to demonstrate that between 12 and 2, you might not put them in shadow, but you might dramatically increase their energy costs for both the summer and for winter. And I think that's going to be a substantial impact to them, aside from all the other things that they've mentioned. I'm also kind of concerned about, from a building of this magnitude and the number of people that may be in it, in the event of emergency, if you've got enough sidewalk capacity to accommodate everybody getting out of that building, because of where I'm looking at it, it's questionable. If you're just looking at normal amount of space that people take up when they're standing on a sidewalk. Also interested in if you know anything about, at some point, finding out what fire department's laddering capability is. I know 6 stories is getting up there, and I'm not sure what their current laddering capacity is to sort of get to a street like that. And what other people have mentioned about the traffic, and I know that's just sort of a pervasive problem, that there's not a ton of things that the city can do. I'm more worried about how that affects emergency access during peak commute hours, and what that's going to mean in terms of the length of service, that not only to your project, but to our neighborhood, what we can expect is going to happen. And the last thing is, there's 2 areas in San Mateo that are deficient in recreational facilities for neighborhoods, and this happens to be one of them, as well as the southern end. Everywhere else in the city, the city mothers and fathers have seen fit to provide adequate park and recreation facilities. This is one of the sites that some people had asked for the city to consider a recreational facility, as well as the old school on Peninsula, and at both opportunities, the council declined not to purchase them. Even for the school at 25 cents on the dollar, they weren't willing to take it. So it's a bit disconcerting that those things have happened in the past. And lastly, just historically wise, just so you have some sense, this started out as a single-family neighborhood in the early 1900s, late 1800s. And over time, during the 60s, as far as I can tell, people were retiring, and the council changed the zoning to allow people to add a unit or 2 units, since these were fairly large lots. And that's how it transitioned. And it took up, from what I can gather, most of the development in the 1960s, residential-wise. So this city has, if you will, imposed requirements for this area to be a sort of a garden apartment neighborhood. And I just think it's done more than its fair share of absorbing multifamily housing, and it sort of kind of works. But we're getting to the limits of, in terms of parking and all those kinds of things. and other facilities. But anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
It looks like there's no more hands. I'm not sure if anyone else has any other questions for the presenters. Right. Oh, Carolyn Martin Gilman.
Yeah, just a quick question. How does future communication regarding this project happen? Is it via mail or email, or how would that go?
You have great question, and phone numbers and emails for I think the two people that are happy to answer any and all questions, myself and Elaine with the city, are here and available. So please do feel free to reach out.
Oh, sorry, Catherine. Go ahead. You have your.
I was just wondering if there's a way that we can communicate with each other, the residents. If we could have put our emails in the chat or something so that we can communicate to make sure that we don't lose touch with what we want to communicate to the city. Because right now we don't have a way to talk to each other. We can talk to the administrators of this project, but we can't talk to each other or know where we each other live. So I was just wondering if people want to put their information in the chat so we can communicate those things.
Yeah, great thought. Unfortunately, the chat functionality is disabled for this meeting if you try to access it. So maybe some other forum would be more appropriate for that in case people are wary of sharing their information. We have Elaine from the city. You're unmuted, but we can't hear you. I see you talking. I'm not sure if it's a microphone setting.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, trying to figure out how to raise my hand throughout the meeting. This application will be a site architectural plan review. However, because the height exceeds 55 feet, so that eventually will go to City Council. So we will have a planning commission meeting first to make a recommendation to the council and then go to council eventually. And then for the technical studies, the city will hire third-party consultant to do all the technical study for CEQA that include noise and vibration for construction, hazmat investigation, and as well as traffic impact studies. The developer will provide the shadow analysis. And then after the meeting, feel free to send me an email. I will keep everyone who emailed me in the interested party list. And then also, my understanding is anyone who attend the meeting will be included in the required document to be submitted by the applicant, which is the contact information of tonight's Zoom participants, as well as a summary of all the questions and comments being raised tonight. So I confirm that. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. We have Semina Quintiana.
Hi, all. It's Semena again. I just wanted to provide my email. I'm happy to put together all of the residents' emails and start just a an email thread that all the residents can share. So I'm just going to share my email on the screen. And feel free to just email me and I'll add everybody. It's just it's X, my first name, P for my first last name, and then rnow@gmail.com. Just go ahead and email me and I can put all of that together, include your name, your address if you feel comfortable including that. And I'm happy to put all of us together on a thread. So I'll just keep that up. That's all I wanted to add.
Thank you for adding that. Denise?
Hello. First I want to say thank you so much for offering up. Sorry, I forgot the name of the person who just did this, but to your putting your email out there is great. I know there's a lot of us that would like to dive into this. And then I was also wondering if like Jonathan or Elaine, if one of you guys can like if we were to email you, because we can see your email right here, that you might be able to share email addresses across the whole group. Like we email you and say, hey, please include me in this group. And then you send an email to everyone who did that. Is that something, Jonathan or Elaine, you might be up for?
I think Elaine is about to speak to that. That's part of the process.
Okay.
I'll defer to you, Elaine, here.
Unfortunately, the city cannot share the residents' email between each other for confidential reasons. So we can be part of this neighborhood group. However, I believe if you want to talk directly to the
Ooh, what we missed you there.
Oh.
You're freezing up, Elaine. Sorry.
Oh, okay. The signal's not great. Unfortunately, we cannot share the neighbor email between each other, and then we cannot be part of the neighborhood group. So we cannot be the organizer of the neighborhood group. However, if you want to talk to the applicant as a group, you can certainly reach out to the applicant to have a private meeting afterwards. So, however, you feel free to talk to me directly. If you, as a group, want to talk to me or the other city department, feel free to reach out to me. We can have a meeting in City Hall in that occasion. So you can do either way, basically.
Sorry, Denise, you might have a follow-up question.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to see if like we can just share our email right now. Like for those of you listening, my email is dmpearsall@outlook. So DM and then pairs all. Okay, and mine is Dillards DILLARDS @me.com. I think of all of us getting being able to share our concerns and work together to make sure that everything is everything is addressed. I think it's a great idea to put in a complex there. I just think the one that's being planned is a little large. If we could make it a little bit smaller and a little bit lower, it would fit perfectly. But the current plan has a lot of concerns. And I just want to say again that I love that our neighbors are getting together and raising the concerns and trying to come up with a better solution. So thank you all. And thank you, Chris, for being such a great moderator here.
Thank you. And looks like we have a hand from our call-in user.
Hi, this is Steve Carlson again. Question that I had from Elaine was that I didn't hear if they needed a zoning reclassification. I took a look at the zoning code, and it seems to suggest that executive office and heavy commercial don't allow residential without a reclass to at least an overlay zone, and if so, what that is it R4 or what? And so that's kind of why I was sort of looking at what kind of entitlements. So is that the kind of thing that this proposed development or whatever one comes forward would be required to request?
Thank you for the question. I see Elaine on here, but I'm not sure if she's having connectivity issues or if she's off camera right now. But that question is noted into the meeting notes, and so I'm sure that it will be addressed. Okay, Jonathan, it appears that all the comments or the questions are completed from the participants here.
Thanks, Chris. Well, appreciate everybody's time tonight. You have our contact information. We greatly appreciate all the input that was received. And you can reach out to Elaine or I. We want to just thank you again for all your time this evening. Greatly appreciate it. And speak to you in the future. If you have any questions, you know how to reach us. So thanks again. Appreciate your time.